Hello and welcome to another episode of Off Track with Hinch and Rossi. I am James Hinchcliffe.
And I am Mr. Alexander Michael Rossi.
Mr. Personality, Alexander Michael Rossi.
Yeah,
Wait,
man.
are you sponsoring the safety team?
What?
The AMR safety team?
No, but I am Aston Martin Racing. I can say that now since yeah, you know.
Bombshell, Fernando Alonso will not be returning to the number 14 Formula One car for Aston Martin Racing.
Yes, he's going straight to coin.
Yeah, who did he piss off this time?
The number of people that came up to me in Mid-Ohio and were like, there's no way he didn't tell you before the show. I'm like, no. We found out on the show. That was real. That was legit. He just dropped that bombshell 15 minutes into the episode.
And I saw somebody on Reddit. They're like, of course he wouldn't tell James. James is technically media now. He has to be careful. I was like, no, that wasn't it. Alex just thought it'd be funny to drop it on the show.
No, James is very aware of everything that's going on right now.
Yeah, it's true. The funny part about that is like, part of me just thinks that, because like I do this stuff all the time and it drives Becky crazy. Like some relatively important information will cross my path or cross my desk or be conveyed to me in some way or another. And then if Becky's not around me within the following 4 to 5 minutes, it kind of just takes a back seat in my head. And then it'll come up like I'll be talking to somebody else a day or two later and Becky's in the room and I'll be like, oh yeah, and by the way, and I'll say this thing and she'll just look at me and be like, what? Are you kidding me? I'm just hearing about this now. I'm like, yeah. In hindsight, I probably should have mentioned that earlier. And so I just had this vision of Alex having the same thing where I don't even remember what we were talking about at that point in the episode. He was just like, oh shoot, yeah, I should probably just tell these guys.
Correct.
It was not, this was not like a master plan. He's like, oh, I'm going to drop it in the middle of the episode. And it's going to be such a surprise. He was like, oh, actually, you know what? We just mentioned, yeah. So, hey, by the way.
Yeah. Well, I try and keep it interesting, everyone.
I forgot to do my normal like check-in before we hit record about, is there anything that we should go over before we hit record? Any other massive, any contract changes that we should go over before we get 15 to 20 minutes into this episode?
I mean, I'm sure it's IndyCar, but nothing to do with me.
Okay.
Well, I was going to wait a few more minutes before talking about my contract, which still doesn't exist for 2025 and beyond. Sorry, guys, no update.
Nice.
Okay.
Congrats.
All right.
Yeah, no, it's pretty big news.
It's pretty cool.
Pretty big news.
Yeah.
pretty neat. So yeah, so just so you have no other contract news to share with the group, well, we've got you here.
Okay.
Tim, have you signed anything?
No, I might have an announcement for something next week though.
Yeah.
When are you announcing
Did you sign some receipts for like
next week?
I'm sure you signed some like bar tab receipts though.
Yeah, no, a lot of those.
Yeah.
What did you do last weekend? Timbo?
I went up and visited some family in
Remember
Santa
you posted
Barbara.
those pictures of those stupid ass glasses that he thinks are cool?
Oh, right.
I got a lot of compliments on those glasses.
I don't
and
believe
some not
that.
Compliments.
Right.
Yeah. I think those are
I got a
things
compliment on those glasses from somebody I would rather not have had a compliment. He was like,
Sure.
"Man, this looks great on you." It's like, "Ooh, if you think that, I should reconsider."
Yeah.
Also, you have to take tone into account. When someone says, cool glasses, bro, that doesn't actually register as a compliment.
That sounds normal to me. That sounded like a compliment.
I think
I'm sorry. I think I'm seeing
seeing
the problem. Yeah. Okay. I know there was some actual racing we should talk about, but I saw something kind of cool on my drive home on Sunday that I want to talk about. I was driving on the 405 going south. And
it sounds like the start of a Californian sketch from SNL.
There was like a big plume of
Mulholland.
smoke. There was like a big plume. It was past Mulholland. There was a big plume of smoke around the corner and going through the pass. And Hazel and I see it. And she goes, I wonder if it's a forest fire. I say, I don't think so, because there's no northbound traffic. So I think it's something on the road. And we're in the HOV lane, so we're all the way in the left. And there's just a truck on fire. There's like the cab of the truck is on fire. Not massive, but as we get closer to it, it explodes and then becomes a really big fire. I'm thinking, well, this is kind of cool. We're all going kind of slow because, you know, we're there. but there's no fire trucks at it yet. Like 200 yards away, there's a cop blocking the northbound traffic from coming up, but no fire department yet. And so I roll down the window because I want to get a picture of it and get hit by like a wall of heat. And as I get even with it, I realize it's 2 diesel tankers that this truck is dragging, and it's on fire. And now the fire is starting to get close to the fuel tanks. So I just jumped in the shoulder and got the away from there. Because I was like, I don't want to be going 20 miles per hour away from this. I would like to be away from this in case anything goes.
But diesel's like super not that flammable, right?
No, I didn't know that. Okay. I just assumed like as fuel, it would be flammable.
I mean,
or to quote Archer, did you realize flammable and inflammable mean the same thing?
It is, but like if that was gas, that would have been a pretty big problem. Whereas
I'll send you guys the picture and I'll post it on the video while we're doing this.
Yeah, I saw the picture. Here's the thing. Anytime there's a tanker truck of any kind, I assume that what's in it is flammable. It could be water.
That's true. I didn't know it was necessarily diesel until after the fact and it was on the news. It just looked like a gas tanker.
Yeah. It could be jet fuel.
That
could be liquid dynamite. I don't know.
Could be water.
That's what I said. Could be water.
Oh, right.
I'm gonna operate under the assumption that it's extremely flammable. And if that thing starts like jackknifing on the highway, I'm blowing up real quick.
I can say that it was cool to see it because nobody got hurt. The driver got out in time. The driver saw a fire in his engine, called CHP. They shut down the highway. He got away from the fire. Everybody was fine. They closed down the highway for 4 hours, but everybody was okay. So I can say that watching that thing blow up was awesome.
I'm sure that didn't affect LA traffic at all.
The other thing is like all of my decades of experience playing video games, if I see a fuel tanker on fire, I assume I have seconds until there's an explosion.
Oh my
because
God.
I've played enough video games for that.
Or
watched enough movies.
Bruce Willis movie. Yeah. Like it's just an impending thing. Okay. Mid-Ohio. We did it. We introduced hybrids to the world. No, that's not true.
Most people did it.
Yeah, sorry, Scott. Here's the thing, man. Like throughout practice, there were almost no issues in terms of like cars getting shut down, right? Did I miss something?
Nope, you did not miss anything.
The fact that not only did the first like major problem happen at the start of the race, it happened to one of the championship contenders. Not great, suboptimal. But one issue over the entire weekend.
So good. was it the hybrid that was the issue with him?
Yes.
It did seem to be related. Yes.
Okay.
But anyway, so we get there, first practice, repave, hybrids, etc.
Well, no.
Oh, okay. No, we didn't do that.
No. We get there, and James Hinchcliffe does demo laps in an IndyCar. Oh. Let's talk about that.
Yes.
Or tries. He tries to do demo laps in an IndyCar.
No, he did.
I finished the laps.
What happened? It just didn't start.
So, right. We figured that out eventually, which was good.
Yeah. But you got back in an IndyCar for the first time in 2 years? 3 years?
Since
2 and a bit. 3 years?
Long Beach 21.
2 to 3 years.
2.5 years.
And this was the first time that you had done anything with the hybrid. Mm-hmm. So what was your experience like from start to finish?
Well, first and foremost, I got to give a big shout out to IndyCar and HRC and MSR, all the acronyms for making it all happen. And this was all done to aid me in my position at NBC. How many more can we squeeze in here?
What's David Malukas' middle name? We could work something out there.
Probably Henry.
DHM.
Go more to like, well, he came from HMD was the team he drove for, and you got to keep track of the SOC, before you hit P2P. But no, so yeah, it was all done in a way for me to try to feel what it was like. So that way, when talking about it on the broadcast, I had some sense of knowing what I was talking about. So a lot of effort from all those people to make it happen. Like I said, the MSR crew had to switch engines for it and prep the car. to be on track earlier, and IndyCar and Honda and everybody. So thank you all for doing that. I wish I would have gotten more laps. That's God's honest truth. It was a lot of fun, just like, sliding back into the car, sitting back in one, firing it up, doing all the same things. None of that stuff's changed. And so it was fun to feel all those feelings, hear those sounds, all the little, everyday inputs that you get when you're driving one of those things. It was cool to experience all that again. The hybrid itself, it was definitely kind of fascinating to feel it after, listening to you talk about it, Alex, and hearing quotes and talking to the drivers about it. And yeah, I mean, it's everything that I felt completely lines up with what you guys have said. It's something, you feel it. It's not nothing. It's not, blowing your socks off in terms of the kick it gives you. The car definitely has a bit more weight. I was driving on they were told they were demo tires. Found out later they had been sitting in a show car in one of the Honda showrooms for the last 4 years. So the tires weren't totally up to spec. So tough to judge the weight side of it too much. But it's a lot of work. That's the one thing that I really came out of it thinking is for what you're getting out of it, the drivers have to put a fair amount of effort into thinking about when they're going to use it, how they're going to use it, when they're regenning, when they're deploying, all the different levels of regen they can play with, things like that. And it was going to be interesting to see come race time who committed to using it all the time, who would use it most of the time, who would use it only at properly opportune moments where an extra tenth or two was extra valuable. Because again, it's easy to kind of get lost and lose track of where you are on switches and buttons and all the rest of it. Now, you guys all have more experience with it and had done whether it's sim time or test time to kind of get a little bit more into the rhythm. But no, it was very cool. It was very cool to get to experience it and see what it was all about. So then you got on track.
Yes. Did it help you on the broadcast?
No, I did.
Okay.
Because in the sense that in preparing to drive the car, I asked so many questions and was given so much information that I wouldn't have maybe thought to have asked, or information that wouldn't have just been freely given to me beforehand had I just been doing the broadcast sort of thing. So in terms of understanding, what the drivers are dealing with on a fast lap, having to hit extra buttons and flick extra switches, for sure. Understanding what the physical, feeling is of hitting the button and the boost you get. But then also just in the conversations that I was having with everybody involved in making that happen, I learned an awful lot about the system. So it was definitely net gain for me to do those laps for sure.
Oh yeah. Well, that's cool. I'm glad that
yeah, it was fun. I did spin. I will say that.
Worked out. Did you do a 360? Yeah. Did you spin?
Yeah. So I spun in the keyhole, but I buried the throttle at just the right time, spun it all the way around, clutched. Jay turned it back, dropped the clutch, never stopped moving. It was perfect. It was beautiful.
What an idiot.
So wait, you completed a donut at Mid-Ohio.
Correct. Yes. I actually did that just as a demonstration for you, Alex.
Yeah. Could you give Alex some tips on?
Yeah. I'll send him the link to show him how it's done.
Relax.
I could never pull off a donut.
So, yes, we get on track after James spins, which is so embarrassing. Why'd you tell me that?
We played it on the broadcast several times.
Yeah, but he wasn't going to watch that.
Did not watch.
He would have never known.
Did not see. Anyways.
Again, I was on tires coming off of a show car.
Idiot.
Relax.
Idiot. So Friday, we had the first practice. I think there was a lot of questions going into it because of, are we keeping you up, Tim?
Yes.
It's 9 a.m.
Yeah.
Okay. We had a lot of questions because
borderline nap time.
I think a lot of people knew that McLaren and Ganassi and Andretti and Penske had done a lot of testing, but so much of that testing was done at the beginning of the year with a different version of the hybrid than what ended up being the final version. And it was mostly at Homestead. And all of the testing that we had done recently was all on ovals. So we were going into Mid-Ohio with quite a few questions, not really on the operation of the hybrid, but just like, what does it actually do to the balance of the car? Because believe it or not, all of the other teams that weren't the manufacturer test teams actually had more recent hybrid road course experience than we did, because they got the extra day at the Indy road course. So
was that the bigger question mark for you going in? Was not necessarily anything to do with the hybrid, but more just about balance and what the extra weight was going to do?
Yeah, our question, we pretty much knew how we were going to use it, what the most effective way to use it. You know, we had done enough simulation. We had a pretty good understanding of that. So that was really kind of secondary. It was more just, what offsets are we going to have to do for the car? How much is the repave going to kind of equalize some of that and combat that? So we went in with our best guess, and without giving too much away, it does change the balance a lot. And the repave did help a lot. So I think we still haven't really seen the full effect of the hybrid yet. I think we'll see that in Toronto, very much so, and we'll see that in Portland. And why I say that is because those obviously aren't repaved. So the 105 pounds, which is a ton of weight. I mean, it is a lot of weight. I mean, we try and manage 3 to 4 pounds, right? That's the margins we deal with in terms of meeting minimum weight and having a buffer and all that sort of thing. So 105 pounds is obviously more than that. It's like 30 times that amount. So I think before we'll talk about the race, but I just want to mention, I think that's why the race was what it was, because of this extra weight. And I'll explain that in a second. So back up to Friday, we roll off, kind of best guess. And no one really got a lot of running in because the rain came. And IndyCar was very nice that they actually allowed us to run the alternate tire in P2, which is what we've always done, except during COVID times. But now we're sticking with that dumb rule of running reds in practice one.
Can I jump in on this, though?
Yes.
I think this is interesting. So 75-minute first practice.
Yes. Okay?
It starts raining 45, 50 minutes into the session, right? Mm-hmm. People have radar. People know that there's a chance rain's coming.
Yes.
So the rule is normally you can run your reds in practice one, then you got to give them back until warm up. Fine.
Yes.
So it rains 45, 50 minutes into the session, usually a little ahead of schedule from when people would run reds, and nobody had run reds yet. So then it rains, and some guys go out, and it looked fun. You looked like you had fun out in the wet. And then IndyCar decided the next morning to do the kind of logical thing and be like, well, nobody got to run them on Friday, so we'll let you run them on Saturday. Here's my issue. There are so many times when the logical thing was thrown away because it wasn't how the rule was written. And then this time, they had the rule, but they decided to go the logical way. Just so we're clear, I would rather always default to logic. However, more than that, I want consistency. And I find it really frustrating that they just cherry pick which things they're going to do outside of the rules. Like, in my opinion, you guys had 45 minutes to run the reds. You knew there was a chance for, and again, I'm coming at this now from a TV standpoint. I was really excited to watch qualifying, having none of you ever run the reds. That was going to be fun for me and everybody at home. Instead, they let you do it right before qualifying. Less fun for us. But like, if it had been raining the whole session, maybe I understand. You had 45 minutes. You all opted not to try the reds, knowing there was a threat of rain.
James,
I say screw you all. You don't get them.
No, but what's dumb is this is a rule in the first place.
No argument there.
Like,
but it's a rule.
But fine. I hear what you're saying, but like, let's bitch about the rule, because who cares when you run reds? If some team wants to run 3 sets of reds in practice and eliminate their ability to qualify on pole, or take a penalty, like obviously no one would do this. I'm talking about extremes, but like if you want to use all your reds in practice 1 or practice 2, who gives like, why is the series controlling when or when we don't use tires? Like, the only rule should be you have to run 1 new set of each compound in the race, period. Everything else that you do, Why are they involved?
I'll tell you why. It's a great question, and I'll tell you why. And it leads to an even stupider rule. Not running Friday morning practice. That's why. Because with only one practice on Friday that is long and in the afternoon, you don't have enough tires to run a 75-minute session. So by forcing you to have to run the reds in practice one, they are guaranteeing everyone's going to do at least one extra run, and that's more track time on Friday. If, however, we had 2 45-minute practice sessions like we used to, you're already there. It saves no money.
We don't actually do more laps, right?
Than if you didn't have reds?
Yes, it's not an extra set of tires. It's the same amount of tires for the weekend, James.
No, I know, but you're being forced to use them in that session versus the tradition. Like when it was the old format, you'd get them Saturday morning for practice 3, right? So you'd run less laps on Friday than you do currently. And so it's all been designed to try to get more laps on Friday, is my understanding.
But everyone sits for 30 minutes anyways. So we don't actually do more laps. I think we looked at it. It's like you might, on average, a car might do 2 laps more, maybe.
Okay, fine. I'm saying that's why. That's the logic.
The only way to actually get more laps on Friday, which I understand why people want to do, people are paying to be there, fine, whatever, is you have to give us an extra set of tires. They didn't actually do that. All they did was mandate when we run
from one. Right.
Exactly. All they did was
so the reasoning behind it is stupid, but at least it doesn't work.
Correct. Well, I mean
got it.
That's most things we do. So Saturday, we obviously did the reds. From our side, we rolled off strong. Car was very good. We were second in practice 1, 6th in practice 2. Keeping up with the evolution of the track, like the track progression with the new pavement was pretty aggressive. So we were very confident with everything. Qualifying was strong. I didn't do a very good job in qualifying because I got a little bit confused. So qualifying 1 on blacks, round 1, we were P1. And then we put on the reds, and in our mind, it was going to be a lap 2 tire. Like that was the tire. Like you kind of go out, do a prep lap 2, boom, get the lap in. Sorry, I lied. It was going to be a lap 3 tire. So you kind of go out, do a prep lap, push, and then the second push lap is the lap that it's going to be. Okay?
Right.
Well, I got sent out into a bunch of cars because we mistimed the launch, and I got sent out, no offense to them, but behind like Stingray and Pietro and all this sort of thing. So my sequencing was kind of all over the place and messed up and stuff. And so I transferred, but like neither my lap 2 or my lap 3 were right. Like the pressure window and the temperature window and all of this stuff, it wasn't quite right because I was having to gap and I was having to give a bigger gap than I wanted because cars that weren't very fast and all this sort of thing. Because you want to go out with the guys that are on the same pace as you. And we were at the front of pit lane, so we should have rolled with Pelot and Felix and that sort of thing. Anyways, long story short, we transfer, we're in safely. But I came in and I was like, there's no way it's lap 3. Like it's a lap 2 tire. Like lap 3 was really hard work and the tire temps were below the window that we thought because I had to gap and all this stuff. And like, there's no way. It's got to be lap 2. You got to go out and you got to push and you got to get it in. And they were like, okay.
So you're saying it's like just 2 hard laps, just out of the pits and push, and second lap is the lap.
Correct. Yeah. And they were like, okay. Yeah, we can see that and all this stuff. So we adjusted the pressures and everything for that. So we raised the pressures. We had new tire temp targets and all this stuff. And I go out and my lap 2 at the time was second. And we were like, oh, okay, we're good. And I kept pushing for lap 3 because you never know, right? And it was up and it was still up and it was still going quicker. And then I got to turn 9 and the rears were really hot and overpressured and had a slide and all this stuff. And we didn't transfer by half a tenth. And ultimately what should have done is I should have ignored what happened in round 1. It was kind of a messy run, messy session. Stick to the plan that we had simmed and we had known, and we would have transferred because lap 3 was the lap that everyone transferred on, and my lap 3 was still quicker. It just wasn't quick enough. So that was very frustrating because it was one of those things where I kind of took control of the situation away from the engineers, and it turned out to be wrong. So that's a tough pill to swallow. So I feel bad because obviously the cars were fast. I think we could have been easily kind of row 2. I think we could have been 3rd or 4th. And as we know in IndyCar, qualifying is incredibly important. But what we didn't know is like we weren't terrible. So we started 7th. Like it wasn't like it was a complete disaster. But it became one of the most track position processional races that I've really ever been a part of. And some of that is because it was an all green race. This isn't all because of the hybrid, but I think some of it's because of the hybrid, because now the pace differential to complete an overtake is like 30 or 40% higher than what it used to be. Just because.
Why is that?
Purely because I think the cars are already, they're pretty light on downforce, really. And so you have the additional weight, and it ultimately becomes that much more sensitive in dirty air. Like I think it's the only way that maybe we're not downforce limited, but open wheel cars are hard in dirty air, right? That's just the nature of the beast. They're hard to follow behind. When you add 105 pounds, all of your problems when you're behind a car in dirty air are just exaggerated, right?
Right. Because you're already relying on so much more. You're stressing the mechanical load of the car that much more anyway. And then when you're in dirty air, you've got less downforce. You're relying more on your mechanical grip, which you kind of have less of because of the extra weight. Got it.
Exactly. So
interesting.
Then what happened in the race? We start 7th, and the mistake train continued, and I had a huge, like almost wrote it off in turn 1 on lap 1 and lost 2 spots. And so from there, it was just a fight to just kind of get back to where we started. An incredibly boring race from my side. And I know it wasn't for the win, but from my side in 7th through 9th, it was horrible because the first stint was all just about hitting a number to try and get an overcut, right? That was the game everyone was playing, was the overcut game. And that got thwarted because Jack Harvey came out of the pits on new alternates in front of us. And so couldn't go anywhere with him. So we had to pit. So all the fuel and lap time I had given up to try and overcut people went away because we had to pit with them anyways. And so then from there, it was just about like playing the game with everyone else. How do we jump them in pit lane? All this sort of thing. Long story short, we jumped them in pit lane. We collected a few cars that had some issues in pit lane, and we finished 6th. So it was a very anticlimactic day. That being said, still good points. It's amazing how tight it is, 3rd to like 10th right now, 3rd to 8th. So yeah, we're there. We're thereabouts. Pato had a win that was long overdue. And very happy for the 5 car and for all of those guys because it's been a lot of very near misses for them, and he deserves to finally get one. So that was cool for him and the team.
Yeah, and it was good for him to. It was good to see him get a win on track because I know we talk about like he got St. Pete, but it was after the fact, so it's good.
Yeah,
I will say, and James, I always thought it made me think about what you say. I thought it was a pretty boring race until the end. But then it's like you say, if you have an entertaining end, that makes up for a hell of a lot. Like afterwards, it was like, oh, okay, well, that was actually fun. I thought Palou was going to get him though.
It's like how the saying in racing is, you're only as good as your last race, right?
Yeah.
Well, like people remember the last lap, right? And if the end of the race is good, they'll forget a lot of other stuff. And yeah, it was pretty processional. Like I feel really bad for Malukas. Let's just give him a shout out. Qualifying 3rd. Awesome job. Super impressive. Running 3rd in the first stint, stalled even the pits. So I don't know, he ended up 12th or whatever, couldn't move from there. Kind of to your point, Alex, like wherever you were track position wise, the top 2 obviously swapped, but a lot of other people kind of finished roughly where they started had it not been for some sort of calamity that they had. But yeah, shout out to Little Dave. Palou was walking it in the first stint on blacks, easily the fastest car on blacks. I want to actually, there was a question I wanted to bring up to you. Was it because it was all green and because it was like a negative deg race for the most part? Was it, and you have this extra weight and a repave, was it a physical race? Like was that one?
Dude, I don't understand. I've talked with my engineer now at length, right? I don't know that I understand what makes an IndyCar race physical or what makes steering weight heavy. It should have been it was hot, sunny. It should have been the hardest race of our careers. And it was like, I would say it was not even in the top 50% of the hardest races I've done.
Really?
Yeah. And
because
so,
like, look, we all know that when you're going slower, right, it's not as physical. But like with the repave, so like the hybrid system with the weight, you're going to go a bit slower. But with the repave, you were kind of going about the same speed.
No. Like the race pace was like a second and a half quicker. Like we were doing like 70.3s in the race last year. Oh yeah, it was much quicker. Yeah.
So is everyone, did you talk to other drivers? Did they say the same thing?
I would say other drivers were beat up from the heat because the new aero screen sucks, but like not from a... it does.
Like not a steering weight, like
not from a steering weight and load standpoint, like which is very weird. And I do believe that it has to be because all the weight is rearward, and so like the car, man, that it rotates itself. Like let me tell you, you don't have to turn very. You don't have to put very much wheel lock in. Like that thing.
Yeah, I mean, the distribution's gone rearward, so you've essentially statically taken weight off of the front, right?
Yes.
Even though you've added weight, the percentage of the weight that's on the front is lower.
Yeah.
That's an interesting point. Yeah, the thing's just freeze trying to turn itself.
Bro, it's wild. No. I love it. Like it's kind of back to the good old days, but it's I think that has something to do with it. Instead of it being just this understeery pig that you're just cramming lock in and just trying to force it around a corner. Like now it's like, oh God, like you're kind of just floating it around.
Most of the
So we talked, I remember when we first talked about the hybrid coming in, Alex, you said the new weight distribution kind of fit your driving style a little more. I know that you said this isn't necessarily representative of how the hybrid's going to be. Maybe we'll get more of a preview of that in Toronto. Do you think that this will play more into your style?
I think, I mean, it's directionally correct. Like we're never going to get back to the days of what the weight distribution used to be like. But no, it's in that direction.
By the way, I thought that was a great question for me. I felt like a real
it is a good question.
Guy there.
Yeah, you almost sound like you know what you're talking about.
That's why I wanted to ruin it by pointing it out.
But like it was weird to me that some very strong cars struggled over the weekend. Like I do think that there's still going to be a lot of adaptation to the setup that is required over the next couple of events. So
I think notably the Penske's were not up there.
And honestly, Dixon wasn't up there. There was a couple, Kirkwood wasn't that strong.
Qualify? Like Dixon was
20th, right?
6th, wasn't he?
No, I thought Dixon didn't transfer.
McLaughlin was 6th.
Oh, right.
Scott was like 17th or something. Armstrong was good. So I mean, David was better than Felix. Like I do think there is going to be a little bit of a shift in terms of like there's going to be a change that needs to happen from a setup philosophy and a driving style standpoint. So anyways, that was Mid-Ohio. I do want to credit, as we kind of did at the beginning of the show, the reliability. Listen, you're always going to have problems. Like Scott could have had a problem with his internal combustion engine. Like it's not like happens.
You've had a bunch of those this year.
Right. I mean, I had a tire come off. Tire's not a new invention, right?
Right.
I mean, happens. And there was a lot of heat on the series for delaying this and introducing it mid-season. And oh my God, it's gonna have such an impact on the championship. Blah blah blah. Listen, the same guy's still winning. Okay. Well, sorry, I was thinking Palou won, but the same guy is pretty much still winning, right? And it was reliable as hell. And I just have to say that is credit to a very hard decision and a very controversial decision that they made. And it kind of came off pretty seamlessly. And I think that deserves a well done from everyone. So
100%. And we saw the starter work. We saw reverse work. One thing that we didn't even really catch on the broadcast, Grosjean had a spin at a 9 with like 3 laps to go and stalled. But he went off in a place where we literally didn't have a camera on him. So we saw him like spin, and then he kind of disappears behind a wall, and you're sitting there for a minute, and then he drives off and away. We didn't know that he'd stalled and used the onboard starter to fix it. So
that would have been a yellow.
It not only would have been a yellow, the race would have
been
finished
the end of the race. Yeah.
Right. Just by the time you packed everybody up, like even with abandonment of procedures, I don't know you would have had enough time to. So it saved that. And man, we had a great end of the race anyway. We had a great finish. We didn't want to see that thing finish under yellow. So yeah, like we were saying, the way the race played out, Palou was blistering on blacks, but Pato was so fast on reds. And Palou had the smallest hiccup. So Palou pulls out a 5-6 second gap first stint. Second stint kind of stays the same, and then throughout the stint, Pato closes it all the way down to a second. And then in that second stop, that final stop, Palou just had a small little hiccup leaving the pit box, and it was enough of a, had he pitted with the 5-second advantage he had in the first stint, wouldn't have been a problem. But Pato did an incredible job closing that gap, and even with Palou having the overcut, it worked out in Pato's favor. And then he did a great job hanging onto the car, dealing with traffic, lap traffic at the end of the race in Mid-Ohio. We've seen this one before, but didn't get caught out by that, didn't get flustered, and Palou was all over him. So very, very hard-earned, well-earned win for Mr. O'Ward.
Well, I know, and I know we're out of time. It seems a shame we're not going to be able to talk about the F1 race at all, because it was actually...
That's weird, a good point.
But
for Lewis, that's sick.
Yeah, unreal.
First guy ever in history to win a race after his 300th Grand Prix. So that is
first guy to win 9 Grand Prix at the same track. He has not been off the podium at Silverstone in the last 12 years.
Yeah, but what is Silverstone? Like, Silverstone's not like an iconic F1 track or anything.
Do you want to know who was off the podium in Silverstone?
Your boy George?
Yeah. But I feel bad saying that because
from Paul's home Grand Prix and he has a DNF and you're on him. Man, that's brutal.
What a way to end it. Way to go. All right. See you guys next week. Have fun in Iowa.
Well, that'll be hot.